Hey guys, welcome to a little, I guess you can call it a book review podcast or a story review podcast or whatever the fuck I feel like reviewing at the time podcast. So, we're going to be talking about a William D. Arand book. William D. Arand is this great author. He creates these great books, and we're going to be talking about one of, I think it was the first book he ever wrote. I think it was Otherlife Dreams. That's the book we're going to be talking about today. And before we get into that, next week we're going to be talking about the second book to this trilogy, which is Otherlife Nightmares. So, let's skip on happily do with all that other shit and let's get right on to the review. So, before we get into it, let me pose you a question. What makes a person a person? What gives you the right to live over someone else? And do you have to be flesh and bones to have the right to live, to survive, to be considered human? That's the question that William D. Arand really poses in this very first book. And honestly, it really got to me. Like, honestly, if you don't pay attention, like, even if you don't pay attention, it's pretty fucking obvious that that's the message that he's trying to throw at you. Because, like, during this whole first, like, book, you find Runner, our main character, struggling with, like, his situation and juggling the lives of the people he has to protect against these new like bits of code who've now become companions. And it's kind of weird for me to talk about this because most of y'all probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So let me tell you. So a quick overview of the book will tell you that our main character Runner gets trapped into a game. So yes, this is an isekai. So isekai, but this is a good isekai in my opinion. Even though this book per se is probably his worst book in my opinion, it's like the book I like least out of all his books. But I digress. Otherlife Dreams is about Runner who gets trapped inside of a game and loses most of his memories. In this memories, in one of the memories he has though, he remembers. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a message that he left for himself. And in this message, he tells him that he needs to level up to get his memories and save everybody. He finds out that he's inside of a game called Otherlife Dreams. And in this world, there are 500,000 other people trapped inside of this video game. And while he is trapped inside of this game, he has to level up and gain his memory so he can figure out what to do and figure out the password so he can log everybody else out. Because a little glitch happened, and this on some SAO shit, if you die in the game, you die in real life. Yes, people die when they're killed. Like, honestly. So, you have to be really careful. And Runner has to be it's decided to be Mr. Running Gun and be the one to save everyone. Don't know. So, in the beginning, we find Runner faced against a wolf that's about to eat his ass. Because, unfortunately, at the beginning, he didn't spawn like normal people in like one of the main areas. He spawned in the middle of fucking nowhere. Going to be attacked by, I think it was in level 10, level 15 direwolf. And he was level fucking 1, so he was about to die already. And it was pretty hilarious because it's like he didn't get to choose his stats at all at the beginning. Like, they give you starter stats to choose and drop them into points. He didn't get to do that. So he was automatically set up with like 100 million bajillion charisma and not shit else. So he had a lot of charisma, but he couldn't do shit else. And it was pretty funny. So then we meet Bastion, this tree that saves his life because he climbs into it and he, doesn't die. Which, actually, you're not supposed to be able to climb a tree because he kind of broke the game when he did this because, you can't climb trees in video games. The same reason why you can't go on roofs in video games. That's never going to come up again. It totally comes up again. But you can't like climb trees in video games. So when he does this, it kind of breaks the engine. And then for a second, he sees this message in his UI that says player Shrit has came on and basically saved everybody because he almost destroyed everything. So in less than 2 minutes of him logging in, he almost killed himself. He almost died by, running into a dire wolf, runs up a tree, almost breaks the game, and almost kills everyone in that instant. It was pretty fucking great. And that's all I want to say in like chronological order without, like spoiling too much. And I really just wanted to tackle, one of the main things I wanted to tackle in this episode of this podcast was that question, what makes a person a person? Because this actually comes up quite frequently, more so than any other books than in this one. And the worst thing about it is I end up reading supercells on superheroes before I read Otherlife Dreams. So it kind of like it broke me because it was like, this is all spoilers. So if you haven't like read any of these, matter of fact, let me not get into that. I guess I'll just hold off on that. Yeah, I should hold off on that, even though it's a big point. It basically like tells you like everybody who he meets is an NPC. They're just bits of code besides the real people. He doesn't run into real people that often, so he's surrounded by NPC bits of code. And slowly he grows attached to these codes because the more he's around them, the more he interferes with like the world balance. And while he interferes with this world balance, he does this thing that he deems awaken, where essentially these AI break their own code and go past their programming, becoming, in essence, in my opinion, real people. They have their own thoughts, own dreams and ambitions. They want to make families, they live, and all this. So I would say, arguably, they're people. They're just like you or me. But throughout this entire first book, we constantly run into these situations where he meets he runs into players later on where he has to decide like, are they just bits of code, or are they real? Are they people? Are they alive? And this conflict really, in a lot of areas, this actually interferes and causes conflict throughout his mission to save everybody. But before we get into that, let's talk about the other characters who we meet before we actually get to interact with real people. The first person we meet is, I don't remember her name. It's not Hannah. I'm not talking about Hannah. I'm talking about the village girl. I'm just going to call her Village Girl because I can't remember her name. Village Girl, who he saves from Hannah and some other bandits after he kicks their asses. So after he kicks their asses and captures Hannah and ties her up, and he's about to go turn her in. Like after he saves from bandits, they were bandits. Hannah and them were bandits. So he essentially captures Hannah and saves the village girl. And in exchange for him saving her, he tells the NPC, because at this point they're just cold to him. They're just cold. So he tells them that, hey, I need to get to the city or a town or something. Take me there. And there aren't any cities close by, so she takes him to a town. And in this town, it's a town of humans. Now, Hannah is a half-breed. And she's half human, half sunless. And this being the case, they want to fucking kill her. Because even though what she really did was try to rob the woman, she didn't really try to harm her or anything. She just wanted to rob her. She's a sunless and she's not human, and these people in these towns are purely like humans. They're human sympathizers. They don't care about anyone else. everybody else must be better off being dung beetles from where they're standing. So at this point, they've decided to kill it, and this is the first like conundrum that I don't know if I would consider a conundrum, but this is like the first like instance where something changes in like Runner. And instead of giving, because he could have got like I guess a reward, yeah, he would have got a reward for turning in Hannah, but instead he decides to keep her with him because if he didn't, she was gonna fucking die because she was a half breed, she wasn't human, but she wasn't quite sunless, and nobody really wanted her, so kill her, easy, solve the problem. So he decided, like, well, all she did was try to steal something. I don't think that deserves capital punishment. So he takes her in and decides that he tells them that he's gonna take her to the next city and have her tried there. So he ends up staying in the inn for a night and keeping her in his room with her. So while this goes on, we have a couple of situations where when Runner broke the game, he kind of created a snowball effect. Because while things are going on and all of this is going on, he ends up getting exposed to things that, weren't supposed to happen in the game. So before I tell you about that, let's talk about how he damn near killed himself when he leveled up. So when you level up, essentially, well, in Runner's case, when you level up, you get a memory. And he ends up leveling up quite a bit from the dire wolves and the bandits all the way up to, I believe it was level 21. So once he gets to level 21, he gets all those levels all at once when he finally decides to open the menu and accept all the little level things. So when he does that, he accepts it all at once, not knowing or thinking about the repercussions that might happen if you do that. So he gets hit with 21 levels worth of memories, and that's a fuck ton of memories. And he goes into shock. He can't move, he can't do anything. And Hannah, who's a thief, is actually in a room with him. So he's probably gonna fucking die, right? Now she doesn't kill him, because in a way she feels like she's indebted to him because he saved her life. Notice, feel. She has feelings. At this point, she's not what they call in later books awakened, but she's getting there. This is like the first instance where we actually understand that, like, she's changing. She's the very first AI that we meet that's actually getting molded and getting changed because of the actions that Runner is taking. And with that, that was the first instance that we actually got to see this happen. And with that, she decides not to kill him and to stay by his side while he's basically paralyzed. And he gets his memories and he can still see everything that's going on. He just can't move. And while he does this, he sees Hannah go through his inventory bag. And start pulling stuff out of his inventory. Yes, like an NPC is interacting with his inventory. That's not supposed to happen. We all know that. Anybody who's played a game knows that. So he broke the game. That very first climbing the tree broke the game more than you could actually imagine. Yada yada. Yada 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 yada. Let's fast forward a little bit till we get to the Northwood Fort. We essentially end up in Northwood Fort after he decides that he wants to level up some. So he decides that he's gonna go kill some ogres. A lot of ogres. So he goes with Hannah by his side, and they go to essentially scout out the area. And as he's going to go scout out the area, he finds out that there are actual people there. There's a barbarian, a purebred sunless, and some other actual people there. So he decides to actually go save them. Like I'm paraphrasing a lot of this story, but you should really go read it because Runner has some amazing fucking one-liners, and I can't say them all, but they're actually really good one-liners, and I actually appreciate his humor, even though he's kind of an ass. But he's a good kind of ass. So he decides that he's gonna go save them, and this is another instance of him breaking the game because he essentially shows Hannah how to use the UI to use a UI so she can join his party and split the experience. Not only that though, but actually be able to see each other when they go invest to go save the other people. So once this happens, when they are actually able to see each other when they're in this because they're in the same party now, they go in and they go try to free the people. Once they get in, they manage to free everyone, including the barbarian, the sunless, the priest, some other people, and the dick that we're not going to talk about because he's a dick and I'm not using his name. I don't give a fuck. So in that instant, when he frees them, the barbarian decides, hey, give me all of your shit. It's a woman barbarian. She decides, hey, give me all of your shit. We're going to leave now. Runner, who's not going to take any shit from her, basically used words to bitch slap her and turn her from a barbarian to a kitten. And that becomes her nickname. And the barbarian name is Katarina. And the sunless, who actually decides to stay back with them to clear out the ogres, is named Thana. Like Thana. Like, you know, deaf. But he actually, you know, it's hard to explain. Sorry. That's just her name. So they decide to help him take out all of the ogres. So they use Hannah to go out there to kite all the monsters by section and drag them in, and then funneling them through the barn where everybody was kept. And during this, Katarina gains respect for Runner through battles because barbarians are warriors and yada yada, and that happens and this happens, and they end up defeating all the ogres. Thus, they end up running into the boss fight. And they end up having to go to the center of Northwood Fort to fight the king, the head ogre, the leader who was leading this clan. And of course they win, and they end up finding another female. Yes, this is a harem series, but not like normal harem series. So he ends up finding this other female. She's broken. She has marks. She's pretty rough. This is Nadine. She's personally one of my favorite characters in this trilogy. I love Nadine because throughout the entire series, like, I know this is not a spoiler, but this is like throughout the entire series, she essentially is Runner's moral compass. So yeah. So back on topic though. So when he essentially saves her and feeds her and clothes her, he finds out a little things about her, like she's a merchant. Her name's Nadine, and he offers to let her travel with him and with them to the next town. Oh, yeah. Katarina then decided, hey, we're gonna follow Runner for a while, and Katarina pledges her sword to Runner. So that's good. Oh yeah, because he put all his points in charisma, he's kind of a running gun love machine, but he can't do shit else because he's weak, and now he has to fill up for the deficits and make up for that. So yada yada. Let's skip over this all this other stuff because all of this really is like it's more like this next area of the story is like character development, and that's not something I can really explain. So that's something you kind of have to read for yourself to actually get a hand on. So yada yada, skippity skip, hippity hoppity hoo. Let's move on to another major plot point, and we're gonna tackle Mr. Dick and Runner's ex-girlfriend, who I never bothered to actually remember her name. So Mr. Dick was the not the priest, but the holy worshiper who escaped with the priest after Runner freed them all, and thus end up tagging along with Runner's ex, essentially. And they run into him, and he basically insults them, and then tries to kill. He then tries to kill them, and he tells Runner the gods will forgive him if he forsakes his companions. And yeah. Oh yeah, I skipped something. That's kind of a major point. Like, not in the plot, but in like the character development of Runner himself. So we run into these players, like actual players, and he sees Nadine, Katarina, Dana, and Hannah accompanying Runner, and ask Runner, hey, you got some pretty not fine NPCs, let me take them for a joyride. And at first Runner didn't get it. He was like, what? He's like, hey, let me have sex with your NPCs. Let me use them. And Runner has to deal because he offers him some money, a large sum of money to do so. So now Runner is in this. This is the first instance of Runner actually not associating these NPCs as just bits of code. So we see it a couple of times throughout the series, but this is one of the major points that I don't think anybody really focused on when they read through. Like, this is one of the first points where Runner decides like they're more than just bits of code to him, because he decides that, fuck him. He literally tells him fuck him, and decides, hey, I'm not dealing with this shit, and tells him, hey, go fuck yourself, leave the girls alone, and then essentially walks away. So that's actually really important for later on in the story. So let's do a couple more jumps. Yada yada, yada yada yada. We're past the whole character development thing with Hannah, and this is really the last point I want to get to before I return to that question. So this is like the end of like the first character development like arc for Runner. This will essentially be the end of it, at the end of this first book of this trilogy. Like, he develops more, but this is like the very like first, like, let's say this is the first arc. Well, I guess you can call it a saga, and the arcs could be, yeah, this is the first. He develops throughout the entire trilogy, but in this first book is where he develops, in my opinion, the most. And so this is like, we're not gonna talk about how Runner encountered the Dick and almost died. There's 2 points I want to focus on. First of all, I want to focus on, what was his name? I think his name was Justin. I want to focus on Justin and Runner's encounter with him. So remember how I told you if you die in the game, you die in real life, which is true, essentially. Because when you die in the game, your brain waves get fried. But it doesn't destroy your character. It sends your character to a graveyard to be resurrected like a normal game. But since your brain is fried, they're just there. They're just they're just there. They're not actual characters. They're not actual people anymore. They're essentially soulless husk of people because the people who are there are actually already dead. So Runner runs into Justin again. This is the first time. This is the second time. The first time was when Justin was the one who asked him. Yeah, it was Justin. Asked him to, let him fuck Nadine or any one of those girls. So in the second encounter with Justin, Runner ends up finding him in the tomb. And in this tomb, he finds Justin having sex with the dead bodies of other crew members or other players who are also trapped in this game. Yeah. Runner's pretty pissed. And he also takes a recording of it. It's very important that he did for later on, but he takes a recorder of it and essentially kicks Justin's ass. He doesn't kill him. He just kicks his ass and then makes him leave. And he was having sex with it was a really disturbing description of what was going on. It wasn't detailed or anything, but you knew what was going on, and it was actually really disturbing in my eyes. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck Justin. Was it Justin? I can't remember. I'm gonna keep calling him Justin until I remember what his name was. Because he's the main character. I think his name was Justin. He seems like a Justin. That seems like a Justin thing to do. Sorry to all the Justins listening out there. I don't mean you. I mean other Justins. Not you. You know what I mean. Leave me alone. So that's one area. Now I want to talk about the biggest character development Runner has throughout the entire series, the entire trilogy. And this is where he kills another player to save an NPC. Now, if you fast forward to the podcast and you're just hearing this part, you need to go back and listen so you can actually understand what this means. Of course, when he killed this person, he realized killing this person means killing them in real life. And he didn't kill them through the game. It's something I forgot to explain. But let me just do that real quick. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumbling on, but I forgot to explain something, and I really do need to explain it. So let me do that real quick. So essentially, they're in the future. They're on a spaceship. They're on a Voyager ship, and they're traveling to another planet. And crit happens, that we really don't get details. Do we get details to it in this book? We do. So essentially, Runner's theory is the ship was sabotaged. So he ends up getting ejected as the only person in technical support, as the sergeant of technical support, and he ends up becoming the captain. Being the captain of the ship, he decides to take a spaceship and send it for a course on the way home. And that's basically what happened. Another thing was the game was never really supposed to actually start. It was just supposed to be something to keep their minds safe. It wasn't really supposed to start. When it started, though, that's when it couldn't serve its function properly because it was started, so people had to die. So yeah. Anyway, let's hop back to the other point now. So he essentially ejects the guy from his pod, killing him to save Hannah. Why is this such a big character development? Well, this harkens back to that question I asked at the beginning. What makes a person a person? Did Hannah deserve to live? Because at this point, she's fully awakened. She knows her existence is alive, but she has dreams. She has an ambition. She wants a future. She wants everything that a normal person like me or you or anybody else listening to this podcast would want. So, does this make her less of a person? Does this make her not a person at all? And the essential end to this part of his character development was for Runner was no, this does not make her less of a person. She's still a person, even if she was created differently. Even if she started out as an NPC, in his eyes, she's still a person. And when he makes this decision while he's watching Hannah almost die, he decides to kill the guy by ejecting him from his pod. And this is important because he essentially, in most people's eyes, killed someone over data, over bits of code, over imaginary characters that have no relevance to the world whatsoever. He just killed someone. And most people aren't an eye for an eye type of person, but if it comes down to it, most people would do what it takes to protect the people they love at any cost. This is just human nature. So this kicked in because he's throughout this entire adventure actually grows to care about these NPCs and these characters as more than characters because now they're awakened. They're not just bits of code anymore to him. And in my opinion, they're really not bits of code because they have everything that we have, like dreams, ambitions, and all of that. They just recreated differently. So, at the end of this whole arc, this is like the end of his arc and him finally deciding that even though she's an NPC, or as he starts to refer to them as naturals, even though she's a natural, she's still, I'm using human in loose terms because there are other terms, you know what I mean. She's still human, she's still alive. And that's essentially where the story ends with for this first book. So yeah, what would you do in this scenario? Most people will probably kill, just let Hannah die. But he just couldn't do it. And honestly, in my opinion, I understand his conundrum. Because essentially this other guy was just a stranger. He grew to know these characters. He grew to know these people. So he couldn't just let one of them die after he became so close with them. That's where, again, that question I ask, and I honestly want, if you're listening to this podcast, to really ponder on it. What makes a person a person? No, I'm not going to say you should go kill people over someone talking shit about your waifu. I'm just saying it. William D. Arand really poses a very good question in this book, and I'm not really in like his communities much, but I don't know if people really talked about this. And this isn't the only time this is tackled. This is tackled in many other forms of media. Like, I just finished rewatching for like the 100th time Log Horizon, and that's tackled plenty of times in Log Horizon, this exact same plot point. So that was just interesting. So I just honestly just wanted to talk about it and see what other people thought about it. So yeah, this is actually going to be the end of this podcast. Next week we're going to be talking about Otherlife Nightmares, and the week after that, I think I might change it. Next week, I think I might tackle the truck isekai. So be looking out for that for the next podcast. See ya.